recently, you know, this sign up here that says, "Welcome to the New American Renaissance." And I was talking to Jerry Salenti of Trends about this idea of what a Renaissance is. Now, I'll give you a little brief history of the Renaissance in Europe. At that time, right pre-Renaissance, there was a plague. And the plague killed 2/3 of Europe. The third that was left ended up in these monasteries where there was fresh water, good food. And so only the smartest, richest, etc., people survived. And can you imagine 2/3 of Europe dead? Now, what was happening in the monasteries were the monks were translating ancient Greek texts into Latin. So all of a sudden, Pythagoras shows up, Archimedes, all of a sudden there's math, there's harmony, there's geometry, and that was the key to the Renaissance. So now you have the smartest, rich, you know, genius was now the norm. And the Renaissance is an interesting period because it only lasted about 35, 37 years, sort of the space of Raphael's birthday. But what they had were all the tools, all the proportion tools, and all the suspicions were going. People were becoming more human. They got this whole Greek thing down, you know, and a whole new attitude. Again, they changed their perception. If you want to talk about plagues, 9/11 was our plague. Because what it did was it instilled people with fear, and fear is a plague. We also have the obese plague. You know, America is in rough shape. And people have to start getting back to like what's real, what feels good, what looks good, simplify their lives. I don't know, you know, it's one of those things, you know, that again, when people see an example, you know, that becomes a teaching. And so I said to Jerry, you know, the only antidote to fear is beauty. That beauty, beautiful paintings, beautiful architecture, beautiful people, whatever, beautiful gardens, just do it. They nourish you, they get you out of your, you know, paranoia, your self-fear, because everything else, the media is just constantly bombarding people with this fear. So we're, in our small way, trying to just ignite people into getting out of that state of mind and enjoying, you know, their beautiful life. And realizing that, you know, you're here to, you know, for joy and to pass. And the most powerful force in the world is unconditional love. And so there's a kind of a way that art can do that. And when people go and hear beautiful music, it changes their perception. People come and look at beautiful paintings, changes their perception, especially young people. I've been meeting a lot of young people lately who are totally confused. There's no work out there. And I said, now this is your job. You know, design your way out.
I love the fact that the American Renaissance has to do with each individual creating a quality of life experience for themselves.
Right.
And that's a very American kind of concept.
Right. Yeah. You're your own Renaissance in a way. You know, rebirth, wake up, change perception, change rituals, simplify your life. You know, all of a sudden everything starts changing. You know, like when I said before, like 9/11 was the plague, because millions of people moved out of the city who had like summer homes up here or a second home, and they just got out of the city and they came up to the Hudson Valley. They started raising goats and making cheese, and we know people that, you know, Beverly goes to the markets all the time, and there are all these people refining what they did in Europe years ago, you know, just refining the food we eat, because the food you can't trust, you know. And what's the truth about, you're starting there, what's the truth about food? You know, at one level, there's this whole kind of gourmet culture of foodies, you know, we're taking food to another level, but there's the day-to-day, you know, person who lives up here like this, who's getting into like a whole other thing of growing their own, making their own, refining it, you know. Another great story was Cosimo De Medici. The Medicis were very, very wealthy. They become bankers. You know, at that time, Venice and Florence were, you know, bringing all the stuff from the East on the silk trade, the Silk Road. And so at one point, Cosimo De Medici, the old man, and started the basic family of the Medicis, which, you know, ruled that country for years. They said to him, what should we do with your excessive wealth? You know, you have now, you know, he said, invest it in beauty. And that was the beginning of the Renaissance. And that's my thing, like invest in beauty, you know. And people always say, well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. One of Beverly's teachers said the hippest thing I ever heard. She says, it's not in the eye, it's in the behavior. Beauty is in the behavior. Your attitude, your perception